me to apologize to her, he said, voice low but sharp enough to cut through the dinner table's quiet. His hand rested protectively on her shoulder, his so-called best friend. Everyone stared. I swallowed hard, the words refusing to come. My name is Lena Hart, I'm 31. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Have you ever realized mid-conversation that your marriage was already over, that the apology they wanted wasn't for peace, but for power? That night I said nothing, just nodded quietly, pretending compliance. His best friend, Maya, smirked, the kind of smile that feeds off humiliation. She leaned in and whispered, "Good girl." My blood turned cold. I spent the rest of dinner in silence while they laughed about boundaries and emotional maturity. I kept my face still, my voice gone. But in my chest, something ancient and calm began to wake. Not rage, not hurt, but precision. When we got home, he followed me into the kitchen, loosening his tie. "You could have at least looked sorry," he said. I looked up slowly. "You want a performance?" He blinked. "Excuse me? An apology that sounds perfect," I continued softly. "Like something you can tell her later, to prove you can still control me." He frowned, sensing danger, but too confident to step back. "Fine," I said, voice smooth as glass. "I'll apologize." He smiled, relieved, stupidly. But I wasn't planning an apology. I was planning a reveal. Because the one thing he'd forgotten was who handled all our finances, who knew his secrets, and who'd saved every screenshot of every late-night message to Maya. The game was about to change, and I never lose at my own rules. The next morning, I replayed his words in my head. Apologize to her. The tone wasn't just controlling. It was possessive, territorial. Like he wanted me to kneel. Maya had always been a shadow in our marriage. The kind of woman who texted at midnight, laughed too loud at his jokes, and always needed advice about her love life. Except her love life had my husband written all over it. So, I decided to play it differently. That evening, I texted Maya directly. "Let's meet for coffee tomorrow. I'd like to talk, woman to woman." She agreed instantly. Of course she did. She thought she'd won. The next day, I arrived early, calm, dressed in pale blue, the color of peace. When she walked in, she smiled like she owned the place. "Didn't expect you to reach out so soon," she said. I smiled back. Neither did I. For 20 minutes, I listened. Listened to her twist the story, how I was too sensitive, how he needed a softer space to talk, how she was just protecting him from stress. And then I slid my phone across the table. On screen, a compilation of screenshots, his messages to her replies, timestamps, photos. She froze. "You wanted an apology," I said softly. "Here it is." Her face drained of color. You've been spying?" "No," I replied calmly. "I've been documenting. You both made this easy." I stood up, gathered my purse, and whispered, "Tell him he'll get my apology right after he opens his email." Because in that inbox, timed to 3 p.m., was a forwarded chain. Every message, every receipt, CC'd to our marriage counselor. The apology had just gone public. By the time I got home, the storm had already started. His car was in the driveway, the door wide open, his voice echoing through the house. "What the hell did you do, Lena?" I set my purse down quietly. "I did exactly what you asked. I apologized." He slammed his phone on the counter. "You humiliated me in front of our therapist. You made me look like some kind of cheater." I tilted my head. "You are one." He froze, eyes narrowing. "You've lost your mind." "Maybe," I said calmly. "Or maybe I just stopped pretending not to see what's been in front of me for months." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "You can't just ruin my reputation like this." "Funny," I said. "That's what betrayal feels like, something you can't control." The silence between us cracked like thunder. He tried to soften, shifting to his favorite tactic. "You're overreacting. You always twist things." I was just being kind to her. "Kind doesn't require secrecy," I said, stepping closer. "And it doesn't come with deleted messages." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then I dropped the next card. I've already spoken to our lawyer. The joint account is frozen. You'll get the papers tomorrow. He blinked, stunned. You're divorcing me over this? No, I said quietly. I'm divorcing you because you made me apologize for your guilt. He stood there, small, cornered, desperate. I grabbed my coat, the air thick with disbelief. Oh, and tell Maya. She might want to start job hunting. HR doesn't love emotional mentorship at work. I left him standing there with nothing but silence and shattered control. The game had changed. And this time, he wasn't the one moving the pieces. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls from him, from Maya, even from his mother. I didn't answer a single one. Instead, I packed a suitcase, brewed coffee, and sat by the window, watching the world go on as if nothing had happened. But inside that house, everything had shifted. At 9 a.m., I walked into our lawyer's office, calm and deliberate. Are you sure about this, Mrs. Hart? He asked gently, flipping through the file I'd sent in the night before. Completely, I said. I've already backed up all evidence, messages, call logs, even the company records showing he used our joint funds to cover Maya's trips. The lawyer nodded. This will go smoothly. You've documented everything. By noon, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from him. You didn't have to do this. We can fix it. Please just call me. I stared at the screen, remembering the night he'd made me apologize for nothing. The way he'd looked at me, like a trophy that had spoken out of turn. I typed slowly. You taught me how to stay quiet. Now you'll learn what silence really feels like. Then I turned my phone off. That afternoon, Maya's name began trending online, a leaked email thread showing she'd been using company money for travel coaching sessions. I didn't leak it. I didn't have to. The truth has a way of finding daylight once the lies start breaking apart. By evening, the HR department issued a statement. By night, she was suspended. And by morning, my husband was alone, reputation cracked, career questioned, and marriage dissolving. He wanted me to apologize. Instead, I made him answer for every word he ever said. By the end of the week, his perfect facade had shattered completely. The man who once corrected my tone at dinner was now begging in broken sentences. He showed up at my office lobby, eyes hollow, tie crooked, holding a single white rose, as if symbolism could rewrite history. Lena, please. You've made your point. Don't destroy me. I stood still, every memory of his humiliation flickering through my mind. The dinners, the subtle insults, the night he made me apologize. And then I said quietly, You destroyed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up after you. He tried to reach for my hand. Maya's gone. She moved to another city. I've lost everything. Doesn't that make us even? I looked him straight in the eyes. You don't understand. This was never about revenge. It was about balance. He flinched. What does that mean? It means, I said, voice steady. You spent years taking from me my confidence, my peace, my dignity. All I did was take them back. His lip trembled, but I didn't soften. Not this time. Leave, Ethan, I said, stepping aside. There's nothing left for you here. He hesitated for a long moment before finally walking away. As the glass doors closed behind him, I felt an unfamiliar lightness in my chest. Not triumph, not pride, freedom. Later that night, I sat in bed with a cup of tea and opened my laptop. In my inbox was an email from our therapist. Lena, I read your message. Thank you for speaking the truth. Healing begins with honesty. I smiled faintly, closed the screen, and turned off the light. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like submission. It felt like peace earned. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were signed. Simple. Clean. No tears, no shouting, just a quiet exchange of pens and finality. When I stepped out of the courthouse, the Florida air felt different. Lighter, almost forgiving. But peace never comes without echoes. That evening, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. It was Maya. Her voice was brittle, stripped of its old confidence. I lost my job, Lena. My reputation's gone. Are you happy now? I leaned against the railing of my balcony, looking out over the city lights. Happy, I repeated.
No.
But I'm free,
She scoffed.
You ruined 2 lives. I smiled faintly.
No, Maya.
I just stopped protecting them. Silence. Then a whisper, almost human this time. He told me you'd never fight back. I didn't, I said. I just stopped losing. She hung up. Afterward, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened a folder on my laptop. Final documents. Inside were screenshots, bank statements, messages, timestamps. The full digital trail of their deceit. I didn't need them anymore. I hovered over the folder and clicked delete. Because some evidence isn't for revenge, it's for closure. That night, as the rain tapped softly on the windows, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it signs papers, closes doors, and never looks back. I wasn't the woman who begged to be understood anymore. I was the woman who learned to walk away with quiet power. And for the first time since I met him, I realized something profound. I didn't lose a husband. I just shed a cage. 3 months passed, and peace became my new rhythm. My mornings started with quiet, just coffee, sunlight, and the gentle sound of life moving forward. No yelling, no walking on eggshells. Just stillness. But one morning a letter arrived. Not an email. Not a message. A real handwritten envelope, the kind people send when they have nothing left but words. It was from Ethan. I'm in therapy. I finally see what I did to you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you're happy now. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer, next to my old wedding ring. Not out of nostalgia. Out of closure. That same afternoon, my friend Mia came over, smiling. There's an opening for director of operations at the firm. You should apply. You'd be perfect. I laughed softly. You think so? She nodded. You survived a marriage built on gaslight and silence. You can survive a boardroom. I applied that night, half expecting rejection. A week later, I got the call. Congratulations, Miss Hart. We'd like to offer you the position. When I hung up, tears finally came, but they weren't sad. They were the kind that wash away the residue of everything you once endured. I opened my journal and wrote, Healing isn't about erasing pain. It's about turning it into direction. For years, Ethan's control defined me. Now my boundaries did. I wasn't the wife who apologized. I wasn't the woman who kept quiet. I was Lena Hart, unbroken, unstoppable, and finally free. The apology he demanded became the turning point I never saw coming. And the silence he mocked became my greatest weapon. A year later, I stood in front of a room full of women, strong, quiet, brave, as I spoke at a local empowerment conference. The banner behind me read, Rebuilding After Betrayal. I smiled, steady and sure. Sometimes the apology they demand, I said, is just their way of keeping control. But the moment you stop explaining yourself, that's the moment you start living. The audience was silent, listening, breathing the same truth I'd once been too afraid to speak. After my talk, a young woman approached me, clutching a notebook. I saw your article about setting boundaries, she said softly. It helped me leave a toxic relationship. Thank you. I held her hand and whispered, You did that yourself. That night, I drove home with the windows down, the city lights passing like memories I no longer needed to keep. My apartment was warm, filled with small reminders of my new life, flowers for my team, the framed photo of me at my first company award, and a single candle burning quietly on the table. I poured tea, opened my journal one last time, and wrote, Peace isn't the absence of pain. It's the choice to stop returning to it. Then I took out the last thing that connected me to Ethan, the letter he'd sent months ago, and fed it to the flame. The paper curled, blackened, and vanished, taking every remnant of apology, guilt, and regret with it. The fire flickered softly, reflected in the window like a heartbeat finally settling. I wasn't the woman who needed his validation anymore. I was the woman who found her own. And that was the only closure I ever needed.